All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Yuen Hawks. I am the chairwoman of this commission. Now I call the meeting to order. First, we have our flag salute led by Commissioner Castro. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, Madam Secretary, can you please do a roll call?
Thank you, Chair Hawks. Commissioner Castro?
Here.
Commissioner DeGrave?
Here.
Commissioner Kingsburg?
Here.
Vice Chair Sizemore?
Present.
Chairperson Hawks?
Here.
All present. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a presentation of manager's introduction.
Yeah, so we thought this would be a good time, especially with having a new commissioner, DeGrave, to just invite the managers in to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do. So, James, looks like you've been voluntold to kick it off. So
Let's
we'll
get it
start with
going.
you.
Good evening. My name is James Wilcox. I oversee the sports division. That includes the athletic fields, joint use agreements, hockey rinks, tennis courts, basketball courts. My office is at Summers Bend, so come out and see me anytime. Thank you.
Before you run away, I was going to bring this up later, but you'd be able to answer the question. So I live in Summers Bend, and I walked through the sports fields.
I think I saw you the other day.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
see you the other day.
But you didn't look at me, and I was like,
I did. I
Maybe,
waved
maybe
at you
not.
when I saw you. You know how the soccer fields back up to Long Creek?
yes.
So every time I walk down that path, I see kids down in the wash looking for soccer balls. Have you looked at raising that fence, or is there a way to raise that fence, or have you already looked at it and it's not feasible, or?
There's always a way to raise it. This one we opened up in February 22, probably within a month or so. We got a couple of concerns. We were going to put our adult soccer out there. That was more or less for Butterfield because they play sideways, different topic. But that did come up where we wanted to put another level up. We talked to Woodside to see if we could do that because we were still in the punch list phase kind of deal, and they weren't willing to do it. So it is obtainable. I agree with you 100%, but I think it's because of the funds.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
Good evening. My name is Gwen Wilcox, and I oversee the aquatics for the city of Temecula. Any questions?
Good evening. I'm Ginger Safstrom, the manager of the Ronald H. Roberts Temecula Public Library, the busiest library in Riverside County. I've given behind-the-scenes tours to two of you, Commissioner Kingsburg and Commissioner Sizemore, and I'd like to offer that opportunity to the rest of you if you can fit it into your schedule, because a picture's worth 1,000 words. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairperson and Commissioners. It's good to be here this evening. My name is Yvette Martinez, Community Services Manager, and I oversee the Human Services Division, Senior and Inclusion Programs. We have a team of dedicated staff over at the Mary Phillips Senior Center and Margarita Rec Center, and we appreciate all of your support. Thank you.
Good evening, Tracy Masters, also Community Services Manager. I oversee our classes, rentals, facilities division. Our team does everything class programming, our instructors, the design of our activity guide, rentals for facilities, picnic shelters, and then a few of our facilities. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jeff Lawrence, and I oversee our community and media relations team. and we promote all the amazing programs, events, and activities that our department puts on.
Is this one of your last introductions, Jeff? Understand you may be moving on soon? Congrats on that.
Yes, it is, yes. It's 32 years went by pretty fast. So I've been very blessed to have worked with one organization, TCSD, for my entire career, and I have a lot of great memories, and I've had the joy and privilege of working with a lot of dedicated recreation professionals, you know, the ones you see here and the ones that have already left, but no, it's been an amazing journey. But yeah, this will be my last time up here too, so yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Hawks and fellow commissioners. My name is Mike Wooten. I manage the CRC and also our Special Events Division, which we'll be providing a presentation on later on tonight. So.
Good evening. I'm Lacey Sisler, and I oversee our homeless outreach and prevention programming, along with the mitigation of the greater impacts to the community as well surrounding homelessness. And I will be giving a little bit of a presentation coming up, so I'll pass it on.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sergio Raya, and I manage the Temecula Valley Museum. Some of you may know me. Nice to meet you, Commissioner DeGrave. But anyway, thank you, guys.
Good evening, Chair Hawks and Commissioners. My name is Sharice Turner. I'm the manager of the Old Town Temecula Community Theater, and it's a great place to come and just unwind and enjoy some arts and culture. Would love to have you all stop by one time.
And I'd just like to mention that not present tonight is Charles Walker. He's the manager over workforce development and education. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say that thank you for all the managers for your dedication and hard work, especially for Jeff. Congratulations for going camping. And also thank you for your service of 32 years. So thank you for taking the time to come here and introduce yourselves to us, and we can meet you face to face. I think I've met most of you, and thank you also for stopping by for our newest commissioner that she can meet you. So thank you.
Okay,
And now
thank
if
you,
you want-
thank you, managers. You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to go home. No one will fault you for.
I was going to say the same thing. All right, now do we have any public comments?
We have no public comments this evening.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the division reports. We have 2 division reports as from Zoe Adkins and Patrice Brown.
Zoe, have you presented before commission before? Okay, then take a minute before you start and just give a little introduction about yourself and your background as well, please.
Hi, my name is Zoe Adkins. I'm a recreation leader. I'm on the media outreach team. Recently, I was cross-training with special events for the last 6 months, so you might have seen me at a lot of our events the past couple months, but I'm back on the media team, and you might also see me in a couple of our reels, something fun that we like to do, and I like to be in them a lot, so sometimes you might see me pop up on your Instagram feed. But for our January statistics, combined with all of our stories, posts, reels, and e-blasts, we had a total reach of 117,000, which is really great. As far as projects, one of them was for the Office of Emergency Management. They reached out to our team to try to help spread the word and give information to our residents regarding everything with the fires and power outages. So we created 2 separate posts about safety tips during power outages and home safety heating tips as well, and just kind of provide them with resources and information. For some of our design projects, we have our new military banner designs that rolled out. 5 of them were redesigned, and they are installed in Old Town last month. And then another fun project that the city manager's office and economic development reached out to our team to help with was our jerseys for the Lake Elsinore Storm to be worn during the city takeover that's happening this summer. So that's a super fun project that we're working on. It's still in the design phase, so more details are to come on that. A campaign that we've recently been rolling out with our classes division is a instructor highlight. So we reached out and we started to highlight some of our instructors. So 2 reels that we had go out this month featured one of our karates and cooking instructors. And then for the youth musical theater, we took headshots. We created programs for over 2,500 patrons attending the classes divisions with the youth musical theater programs that also happened last month. For upcoming projects, part of our team will be at the Surf and Turf Conference this month, where they'll be presenting about social media and how to use it as a public agency, and just kind of give tips and information and kind of how we do things and spread the word. Thank you.
Okay, Patrice, before we go there, let's see if anybody has any questions for Zoe at this point.
We'll go from Commissioner Kingsburg.
Not really a question, just hopefully a brief comment. Nice to meet you, Zoe, and thank you for presenting. Yeah, a couple things caught my attention. I know during the January fires, we were getting a lot of updates from emergency management, so great job for them to utilize your guys' department in making that happen. And then I also caught the reels on the instructor highlight campaign. I thought that was great because, last month we had the presentation here where the instructors were recognized for their tenure. And so I thought it dovetailed that nicely. So I think it's important to recognize these people that are providing services for our residents. So thank you.
Commissioner DeGrave.
I just wanted to say kudos to your team to be presenting at the Surf and Turf Conference. I think it's always great to see Temecula represented at a conference. I know how much time and effort it takes to put something together, so I commend you for that. I did have a question regarding the Storm jerseys that you guys are working on for the game, and I know you'll have more information for us, but for the games, will it be that all the players are representing Temecula, or is it different cities throughout the area? Are they going to each have their own jersey? What does that look like? And I'm looking forward to seeing how we can encourage Temeculans to go to the game and cheer for whoever's wearing our jersey.
Yes, so to the best of my knowledge, I know that it'll just be like a Temecula takeover, and so all the players will be wearing some sort of jersey that represents Temecula. We have a couple different designs that we're going back and forth with and just kind of working on, but they will be 100% repping Temecula, and all the players will.
That sounds great. Thank you. I look forward to hearing more.
Commissioner Castro.
What's the Surf and Turf Conference, and do you prefer surf or turf?
The Surf and Turf Conference is one that some aquatic staff, but also just more public agencies are going to. I'm not quite sure where it is. I think it's in Fontana. And I prefer surf.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Zoe. It's great to see you back in the media team, and I'll just say that I love seeing your work. You bring a certain on-trend point to our media team, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but I was waiting for you to get hit in the face with a bag. I'm glad you didn't.
Thank you. It was funny doing the takes with it because I was trying not to flinch beforehand, but glad we got the take, and thank you, everyone.
And I totally didn't realize I was waiting for that impact until you called me out on it in the reel, and then I was like, oh my God, it's so unfair. Such a bad commissioner.
Thank you, Zoe, and welcome to come to present for the first time. I just have a follow-up question about the city takeover. Is this the first time we are doing it, or what's the purpose of doing it?
So the Lake Elsinore Storm has reached out to us and some of the other local cities to try and encourage, they're trying to sort of spread the word about the storm and encourage attendance. And so they've reached out to us last year as well. And we tried to host a Temecula night, but we didn't have enough lead time to do a jersey or like an official takeover. We just kind of had I think it was promotional tickets that were available for employees. And it was also an August, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon date, just was not great timing. So yeah, it's exciting. They're gonna try to do this annually, and we'll just see how this one goes, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Now we are going to move to Patrice Brown.
Oh, sorry, one more thing for Zoe. Zoe also had our very first reel that went viral. Was Zoe's Halloween one, right?
Yes, it was the Halloween where it was like, I think it was like, oh my gosh, I love this question. And I'm like all Halloweened up. I had people from high school that I haven't talked to in years send it to me. But that was, I think, October 2023. And that one had, I think, over 200,000 views. So that kind of kicked off our reels and our engagement. Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting. Great job.
Zoe
you.
also has a degree in specializing in social media. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, so I graduated from Boise State University in 2022 in integrated media and strategic communication. So I love that I'm able to do social media and use it in a way for a kind of public agency is not something that I really thought about before, but I love being able to like spread information, and my team, there's so many amazing programs and classes and sports activities, parks that not everyone knows about. So I'm really blessed to be on a team where we're able to kind of spread that information and use some of my social media knowledge to kind of help spread it in a fun and relatable way.
Thank you. Now we will move to Patrice Brown.
Okay, here we go. Good evening. My name is Patrice Brown, and I'm with the Homeless Outreach Division. I currently serve as the coordinator for both the mitigation activities and the financial assistance program. Today, I'm here to provide an update on the efforts and progress made within our division over the past month. We are pleased to report that we successfully achieved 8 street exits in the month of January. One case highlight, Friday, January 31st, SWAG assisted a client by connecting them to the Arlington Recovery Center in Riverside. This individual entered a 30-day stabilization program after briefly utilizing emergency shelter assistance at Motel 6 in Temecula. Following this program, they will have the opportunity to transition into residential treatment. In terms of encampment management, our homeless outreach staff made significant strides in January. We discovered 16 dangerous and unhealthy encampments and coordinated 14 cleanups throughout the month. This proactive approach continues to help mitigate health and safety risks for both individuals experiencing homelessness and the community. Another area of focus has been our Flexible Family Assistance Program, FFA. Between November 2024 and January 2025, we were able to assist 17 adults and 17 children, helping them either prevent or end their homelessness. One of the household was fleeing a domestic violence situation, and 8 households included someone with a disability. In January, we assisted 2 households. Both had someone experiencing a disability. So far, we've expended $41,700 of the $140,000 allocated to this program. And then at this time, I'll hand it over to my manager, Lacey Sisler, who will provide an overview of our homeless outreach and prevention program.
Thank you, Patrice. Great job. Thank you for having us. I'm excited to present kind of a briefer version of what we recently presented at council, just to kind of bring you guys up to speed about what we do in our homeless outreach and prevention division. So we're going to start right off with just kind of going over who's on the team. So I do have my notes so I don't forget anything. Our team is made up of city staff, SWAG, RUHS, the core team, and of course, our various community partners. So city staff manages the city's response to homelessness and prevention through regional collaboration, resource center operations, and the mitigation of dangerous and unhealthy encampments and other impacts of homelessness to our community. We also oversee our contracted service providers, which include SWAG and RUHS. And we manage the collaboration with our regional partners as well. So currently our team includes 3 full-time staff members, myself, Patrice, who works on coordinating financial assistance programs and the mitigation administration side of things. And then Mark, who's not here tonight, but he coordinates our field outreach and field mitigation efforts. And then additionally, we have 2 part-time team members, Jillian, who provides administrative support, and we have our intern Noah, he provides support in the field. SWAG, the SWAG team was formed in 2017, and they provide us with 4 full-time outreach workers that focus really on the most vulnerable people that are literally living on the street. They all have social work backgrounds. Many have lived experience in the issues that the people they're treating face as well. And RUHS. So RUHS is provided, so through contract with the county, RUHS provides a full-time mobile crisis response team. And they provide field-based mental health crisis services to assist homeless and any vulnerable Temecula resident. The team collaborates with law enforcement, SWAG, emergency personnel, and the community to connect individuals in crisis to expedited appropriate care at no cost to the city. And then we have our core team. And as I'm sure you guys know, law enforcement support is just totally essential to the efforts. They accompany us when we visit people out in encampments, into the tunnels. They also help with outreach. They're also there to enforce when there's any kind of illegal activities happening. And let's see, so RSO provides the support to Temecula through the Community Outreach Resources and Engagement Team, or the core team. And then finally, we have our community partners as well. So our community partners include county programs, churches, faith-based communities. Mission Hope is a huge partner, providing food to our different, they even provide food to other service providers. We have Project Touch, so it's safe. We definitely have a lot of nice big team of community partners as well. So I'll move along onto our program overview. So kind of like I touched on before, these are our main areas of focus as the Homeless Outreach and Prevention Team. For outreach and engagement, since 2016, the city has engaged in street-level outreach using a balanced approach of compassion and responsibility. And despite facing challenges around limited regional resources and resource resistancy within the clients that we're helping, SWAG, RUHS, city staff, and the core team are out daily with the focus and intention to build trust and offer support to connect individuals with the resources they need. And then impact mitigation is kind of like the other side of everything. So outreach and engagement is us actually making contact with people who are experiencing or at risk for experiencing homelessness and making those connections to get them to the help they need. And then impact mitigation is it's us mitigating all of those impacts of homelessness that happen to the rest of the community, not the individual anymore necessarily that is experiencing the incidents of homelessness. So, as we know, the impacts of homelessness extend far beyond the individual. It affects families, social groups, the community, businesses, and as a city, we're responsible for addressing both. And impact mitigation in our focus includes the cleanup of dangerous and unhealthy encampments and addressing impacts on private property, the impacts to local businesses, and ensuring just the safety of public spaces for everyone, including the people experiencing homelessness and the ones who are not. Patrice talked about the flexible family assistance, and that's grouped in with our homeless prevention diversion program. The homeless prevention team administers the homeless prevention diversion program and has since 2018, utilizing CDBG funds. And we provide financial assistance to Temecula residents who are at risk or experiencing homelessness and fall within an income range as defined by HUD. And the support can cover expenses such as rent, security deposit, mortgage payments, and utilities. For this fiscal year, the council allocated an additional $140,000 to create the Flexible Family Assistance Program. And I know Patrice touched on some of those outcomes that we're very excited about. This program was designed in response specifically to encountering this year for the first time, really, literally homeless households that had children with them. So I believe it was like last January, we encountered a family where they were sleeping outside. Their son was enrolled in one of the schools. They had previously slept in a car, and now were truly outside. RSO had found them, and we called the school, and the school said, yeah, we're aware, and we don't have anything for them. And the answer was going to be move them to a shelter in Riverside, because that's the only place that would accept the family. There were some other various barriers. And then the school would be responsible for transporting them from Riverside before school, and they were going to have to leave early. And we just realized that we need to have a way to respond immediately when specifically households are experiencing literal homelessness with children, but also our most vulnerable residents, which we're defining as seniors, those with disabilities, those fleeing domestic violence, veterans. Yes, and so for this year, yeah. So we use motels, rapid rehousing funds, and we offer transitional support. So connecting participants ultimately to permanent housing, but providing an immediate response to stabilize their lives. And then data evaluation, pretty simple. The city remains committed to ongoing program evaluation and measurable outcomes, ensuring the best quality of life for all our residents, regardless of housing status. And we prioritize data collection so that we can continually evaluate our methods and adjust our approach where and when needed. And community business education and response. So that is really, we proactively educate the community, but then we also are responding to all of those like city app questions and concerns to, we get a lot thrown our way that come in through other areas, but, and then we also proactively communicate kind of with our local businesses to give them offer them some support on how they can also deal with the impacts and prevent further impacts on their businesses. And then census and counts. So we are also responsible for managing the city's participation in annual homeless counts that we host ourselves that focus just on our city, but also participating in the point-in-time counts that happen all across the country. And so just recently we participated in the pit count on January 22nd, and the county should release the results in the near future. It usually takes a couple months. But we also just conducted our locally focused census in November, and I'll share a little bit more about that after we go over our other outcomes. So these are some of our outcomes. Like I said, we track all of our outreach efforts, our outreach outcomes, and of course, street exits is something that we focus on. And a street exit basically just means someone was outside and now they have a place that's secure that they can sleep inside. And so in the year 2024, we had a total of 135 individual street exits. So obviously more people became homeless. Some people that maybe exited the previous year came back into homelessness, but that's our net street exit right there. And we began working with SWAG in this current contract with them back in 2021. And since then, together, we have facilitated 402 street exits, which we're very proud of, and it takes the whole team to do that. Let's see. And then back to our flexible family shelter assistance that we just touched on, and Patrice did as well. That's our total numbers for the program since it started in November. And that's our little card. We can get that information to you guys, but basically, for this program, the clients have to be residents of the city of Temecula, and they should initiate their own intake. So if there is anyone you know of that needs to be referred, that is how they initiate their review, basically. And then this is back to our mitigation. That's just a little example up there of our notice to vacate. While we do have to address the issues around dangerous and unhealthy encampments, a lot of them, pose fire risks, public health issues. They can have a lot of dangerous and unhealthy impacts. So even though we have to address those, we do want to give the people who are staying there enough time to hopefully accept resources, is our hope. But if not, find another place to stay. So we give them that 3-day notice to vacate. So last year we were very busy in our impact mitigation. We discovered a total of 204 encampments, and we were able to resolve 160 of them. Some of them do resolve on their own, so that could be a reason. Some of them, also may have had some issues to do with the area, but we also helped coordinate 2 really large-scale cleanups. And of those, there were some really significant fire risks, and so we're really glad to get those taken care of. And then, so moving on to our census update. Like I said, our census took place back in November on the 20th and the 21st. And this year we surveyed a total of 50 people. And for reference, last year we surveyed 56. So there was a 10% reduction. And of the people we surveyed, this is just a few of the things that we noticed through what we were asking. 66% of those surveyed experienced mental health issues. 76 reported regularly using substances. Only 24% of all respondents believed that substance use impacts their housing status at all. But we noticed, kind of a disconnect between perception and reality here. 88% did volunteer that they had a history of arrest. And when we kind of dug into those, most of them kind of went back to substance overuse. And so we thought that was interesting. 46% report that Temecula was their last permanent address. So actually, they were renting a house, renting a room, owning something. Permanent address was in Temecula. 74% of them report that they had been homeless in the city of Temecula for more than a year. And unfortunately, many of our participants expressed a preference to remain outside rather than seek shelter or housing. And kind of the main reason we heard is they don't want to follow, we don't want to follow those rules, or we're just not interested. We have it figured out. I'm going to go back to school. So that's one of the biggest barriers we deal with, is that resistance. Let's see. And then, so finishing up with the census, this is just a graph showing kind of all of our counts together since 2017. The blue is our pit count line, and then the orange is our census. So, while it dips and kind of comes back up, we do see that overall we're following a trend line of the incidence of homelessness reducing within the city of Temecula. And then looking ahead, so we're looking ahead to find out what our official pit count results were. They typically are going to be less than our census because, for example, our last census was 56 individuals counted experiencing homelessness within city limits. And I believe then our last pit count was 38. So it kind of shows that, that difference there shows, we believe, the methods we utilize when we focus locally, we're able to we go over 2 days, we know where to find people, we just do it a little different. We definitely, I think, find our more realistic number. So as soon as we have those new results for the pit count for 2025, we will share them. The things we're looking ahead for as well include things that we kind of identified through our census that we need to focus on a little bit more. We want to expand service connections. We did discover, one thing we discovered is about 20% of our homeless population does not have health coverage, and they're all eligible just based on their status of being homeless. So that's a great action item for us. We're going to focus on expanding those connections, addressing that mental health and addiction component. As far as increasing outreach, probably not a best word choice on my part. More just like focusing our outreach and kind of like looking at what other cities are doing and looking at creative ways to address that resistancy piece more than anything. And we're going to continue to work on our community education, but with the kind of like the focus of fostering the community awareness of that disconnect between people identifying those like the real issues they need to address to stabilize after living outside, and what the risk factors are. We're looking for funding opportunities that would fit within the Temecula way and how we focus our efforts, that could maybe offset some of what we're spending right now. And we're also looking to find out what are people doing with the local flexible shelter options. And so we're going to continue looking into that. And that's it.
Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you.
Thank you for the thorough report. And now I'm going to turn to our commissioners, see if they have any questions. And we'll start with Commissioner Castro.
Thank you for the briefing. I'm always impressed on how focused you are on long-term solutions and not just moving people down the road to another location.
Appreciate that.
If I understood correctly, the flexible family funding, that was from the city providing that funding?
Yes.
And your period for that is you got it in November and you have to spend it by when?
We have to spend it by the end of this fiscal year, June 30th.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
but
so-
unfortunately, the need's so high, I don't see that being a problem.
Yeah, I was
And-
wondering if trying to understand the period
Yeah.
to see if you had enough money or you have barriers to spending the money.
So we're really looking at this year as a year that we're going to gather a lot of data. We have this opportunity that we can flexibly support these families and stabilize their shelter, but we can also find out what works, because we think being able to have that flexible response to be able to say, here's a motel room tonight, and then the case managers are going to meet you and we're going to stabilize your situation. We think it's going to be really valuable and long-term have the best results. And we're also learning who do we need to partner with to get to the people most in need. So we're kind of working all of that out this year. I think this year it's going to be just right, looking at how we're trending and what we're spending per month. At first, we were worried not starting until November, would we have time to spend all the money?
Yeah.
But I think we really underestimated the increase in rents, how quickly these funds were going to go through, because we're seeing more and more now. When we started HPDP back in 2018, average rents we were supporting people with were like $1,200 a month, and now average rents I think are over $3,000. Yeah, definitely we haven't seen anything under $2,000. But so if they have 3 months back payment and they're facing eviction, that's already at $9,000. So yeah, we think it's like a really good sweet spot for this year.
And with your encampments, are you usually finding new ones or they just keep recycling? And
Great question, because exactly both. We continue to look in areas we haven't found encampments before to see if they're moving there, and we find them in new places all the time. A big trend we've seen lately are the tunnels. A lot more encampments and tunnels. But then we also have just the same places that people make encampments over and over and over. Then we have additional areas where the same people are even making the same encampments. And typically that's related to some severe mental illness. Usually the person believes somehow maybe they own the land, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, great question, both.
And then when I was volunteering at Mission Hope, the majority of people coming through were senior citizens. How is that? I know she didn't have that statistic in there. How many of the people in your census are senior
Yeah, so the big bulk of our population, and I do have it here exactly, but I won't make you wait. The big bulk of our population is about 25 to 55. So seniors definitely make up a smaller percentage of the population. I think a lot of that is because there are a lot more services for seniors. So when we do encounter a senior and they want to get off the street, we have a lot to choose from to get them help. A lot more, I should say, than that 25 to 55 population. It is something we're really concerned about, though, especially more on that flexible family assistance, most vulnerable population side, the people who do want the help. We are seeing an uptick in the older population, and we think just knowing where our population, how it's growing, that's going to be a bigger issue as time goes on.
Yeah, because I saw in the latest census things for Temecula, I think 25% of the population is over 55.
Yeah.
So.
And definitely depending on that, Mission Hope fills a huge spot for that population. You know, so they can make their house payments while not having to worry about food or home supplies and things like that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kingsburg?
Well, Commissioner Castro stole all my good questions, but I'll try to ask a follow-up. Yeah, and I don't know how specific you can be, but I was kind of curious when you mentioned the 16 dangerous and healthy encampments and good success in the 14 cleanups. And you sort of suggested there's some that get repeat encampments, and there's clusters, but they're spread out. And I guess my specific question was, it felt like a year or so ago, you know, we were getting feedback about a lot of activity on the Santa Gertrudis trail there, you know, and I know there's been some construction since, but is that area still, you know, a hot spot?
I would say it's a hot spot more for like activity that stops because of the trails being closed. We'll find people like staying, but we're not seeing a ton of like actual encampments starting down there in areas adjacent to that area, like off the trail, more like in behind a tree, something like that. We see those, but it does continue to be a hot spot. I think it's gotten better because between park attendants, outreach staff, and RSO, and then private security, we're making just a very collaborative effort to make sure that that area stays safe, because we did see the risk, like if that got out of hand, that could be pretty bad quick. So it continues to be an issue, but I do think it's getting better.
Right. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of construction at this time and all that. No, I really appreciated learning all this. I got a real good comprehensive view of your department tonight. Thank you, Patrice, and you as well, Lacey, for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Commissioner DeGrave?
Yes, I have a quick question. When you're doing the cleanups, what is the goal? Are you just cleaning up items that could be deemed hazardous, or are you literally sweeping up and cleaning up these encampments entirely, and
that's a great
residents
question.
are just looking for a new place to set up?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Typically, so we notice the encampment, then we kind of assess the needs of the encampment. And what we're looking for, the goal of it, is to mitigate any of the dangerous and unhealthy impacts there. So, you know, people are using makeshift bathroom facilities. Things get soiled when they're outside. It gets wet. So there's drug paraphernalia. So when we scan it, we do look for, does anything here look like it could be someone's personal property that would be hard to replace for them or valuable? So like a backpack, and then that would be safe to retrieve. And so we retrieve those items, and then we clean up everything that's there. So historically, there would be more encampments where we would get there, and there would be a lot that looked like, okay, this stuff looks like personal property. It's safe to take back and store for them. And then we leave a notice saying, you know, your stuff is here if you want to get it. We keep it for 90 days. Lately, we've been noticing, and we have our ideas why it could be, but the encampments really don't have spaces within the encampments that aren't soiled, that aren't like surrounded and covered with dangerous and unhealthy materials as much anymore. We kind of anecdotally blame it on the uptick in fentanyl. We're just seeing like a completely different type of encampment now. The impacts are different due to that, I think. So lately, it's mostly just like, you know, there's a few backpacks and bikes that we can take back, and everything else, it's just like a disaster. And we take before and after pictures, so we have it to reference. It's pretty bad. So hopefully that answers that.
And so do people actually come and pick up their belongings?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we're glad to be able to provide that, because some people, you know, they come and they pick it up and that was their medication, or they have their ID. And we have times where while they're picking it up, we're like, do you really want to keep doing this? Like, we could, instead of just picking up your stuff, you can come inside and we can start case managing and get you on the path to shelter. And that is a lot of times when that change happens. And then even surprisingly recently on one of our large-scale cleanups, the contractor themselves was out there and they were chatting with the people who were kind of like coming and asking him, hey, can I grab that? Can I grab that? And stopped the operations, let him grab things. And then he ended up going to treatment and he attributes it to the conversation he had with our contractor. So as much as it hurts us as outreach workers that, it's like parents that you have to also do the discipline, and you're like, oh, we just want to do the feel good stuff. But we do really see every contact is an opportunity for change. And sometimes holding someone accountable is the moment that things kind of start to click.
Lacey, would you mind describing our administrative procedure for the storage of private property on public property?
Yes, so our administrative procedure for, it addresses exactly what you're asking. There's been different court cases that have come up where we try to kind of identify what is our responsibility as the city and base it on past cases. And we came up with an administrative guidelines that we kind of take the most conservative approaches from all the different cities around and outline how we're going to clean up while also protecting these individuals' experience. And so ours requires us to post a 72-hour notice to vacate, as we showed previously, and it outlines and kind of describes exactly what it means to store the personal property. And then additionally, it outlines that we will keep that personal property for a minimum of 90 days. And we typically exceed that, but yeah, does that cover that?
Thanks.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Vice Chair?
Everybody asked a lot of great questions.
They did.
And your report was very thorough.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all that you shared, and thank you for what you're doing in our community and helping our residents.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lacey, again for your report and for your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the support and for the great questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And now I want to move to another round. If our commissioners has questions about the reports that we received in the email. I'm not going to go through everyone, just if anybody wants to comment, then you can let me know. I know earlier that Commissioner Kingsburg, you sent an email and got answers, so thank you for that.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Willa, for your timely response to that this afternoon. So I appreciate it. Yeah, I did ask about the success of the Martin Luther King food drive, and it sounds like it was successful. So that was great. And I also got some information on the Young Men's Conference. Like pronto, I got some information, like just moments after I emailed you. So thank you guys so much for that.
Thank you. And now we are going to move into the consent calendar. The first item is approve action minutes of January 13, 2025. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. So we have Commissioner Kingsburg, motion, and Commissioner Castro, second. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Chairperson Hawks. I will take a roll call vote. Commissioner Castro.
Aye.
Commissioner DeGrave.
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsburg.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sizemore.
Aye.
Chairperson Hawks.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous and the motion is approved.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to the second item. That's discussion of Old Town events and road closures. And we have Mike Wooten and Tracy Tominas to give us a report.
Hello again, Chair Hawks and fellow commissioners. While Tracy's getting that set up, I'll do a little introduction here. So again, I'm Mike Wooten. This is our Community Services Supervisor, Tracy Tominas, and we're going to provide a presentation on our Old Town events and talk also about the road closures that go along with them. So A little background, we've been tasked with reviewing really all of our Old Town events and the road closures to determine if there's any modifications we can make, really with the ultimate goal to limit the number of road closures. We're going to be going through all the events here, and at the end, we're going to be asking for some recommendations from this group that we can bring back to council next month. And so before we begin, I just feel that it's important to point out that all of our events are coordinated with multiple departments, and that includes Public Works, Emergency Management, Fire, and RSO. This all includes pre and post meetings to discuss safety concerns, logistics, traffic control plans, command post placement, staff responsibilities, along with a lot of other topics as well. And so the reason I say this is just to give you all an understanding that the decisions on our events are not made by just the special events team. So it involves a lot of coordination and collaboration with a lot of different departments. And so with all that, I'm going to pass it over to Tracy and let her talk about these.
Thank you, Mike. So on my first slide, it's just kind of a brief overview of our current events that have been scheduled to take place in Old Town and the number of closures associated with it. So don't have to concentrate too much on this slide because in the next few, I'll kind of go by the slides one by one, but just to kind of give an overview based on the event duration with either setup, the day of the event. It comes out to 79 days throughout the year that the road is closed, and this includes just Mercedes Street, kind of from the 3rd Street alley to the access road, and also the Main Street Y. So to start with our spring events, I'll kind of go through a brief overview, and at the end, if you have questions about specific events, we can definitely go back to that. So the first one coming up would be our Community Services Expo. So for this one, we do close the road on Friday to have all of the canopies set up. The canopies are for all of our contract class instructors and our department division booths. So with this, it's closed on Friday for setup, and then it's closed on Saturday for the event itself. We could, for an event like this, reopen Mercedes Street that Friday evening. That way, once all of the canopies are set up and our supply vendor is out of the way, we could have Mercedes Street open that Friday night and then close it again the Saturday morning just in time for the event. So during this time, Main Street Y would still be closed due to the canopy setup. Then we go on to Rod Run. Although with this one, we do leave Mercedes Street open as our main point of spectators trying to get in and out of Old Town. I just wanted to kind of include that one. So with the Rod Run for our Friday night cruise and our Saturday show and shine, we do have Old Town Front Street and the side streets closed intermittently. We usually open it up just after the cruise concludes and then close it again that Saturday morning. Then we have Culture Fest. This is a one-day event. For this event, all of our participants are required to bring their own canopies, so it's strictly a one-day Saturday closure of Mercedes Street and the Main Street Y. For the summer, as you may know, this past summer was our first time relocating all of the summer concerts from the CRC Amphitheater to the Civic Center Quad. So as Mike had mentioned, we do all of our events. We coordinate with RSO, Fire, Public Works. So the decision to move the summer concert was based on feedback from Fire and RSO just due to the number of attendance. The CRC Amphitheater was getting a little too cramped for that, so the Civic Center Quad has been a good location for that. And this summer we are only hosting the concerts on a night when the Sunset Market is going to be taking place. So that way it's not an additional road closure for the concerts. It's going to be closed in conjunction with the Sunset Market. And then that brings me to our Juneteenth celebration. This event, we've kind of over the years been trying to find the best home for it. So this year we are going to be hosting the concert in the Civic Center Quad, but it's definitely one that we are interested in having recommendations for relocating it for 2026. Just with this year, we have most of the logistics and the bands already performed, so location change might be a little tricky, but it's definitely something we're open to considering for the future. Also in the summer, we have our 4th of July parade. So with this one, The first road closure in the morning is Old Town Front Street, as we're having all of our parade participants come into town. We leave Mercedes Street open until about 9:30, and then at that time, with the parade starting at 10 a.m., it gets a little tricky having any incoming traffic just due to parade staging and also prepping for destaging. So Mercedes Street is closed from approximately 9:30 to 12. Just as soon as that last entry goes through the parade route and goes through destaging, we're able to open it. With National Night Out, we've been hosting this event the past couple years in partnership with the Riverside Sheriff's Department. We are actually looking into the possibility of relocating it for this year. It's been a conversation we've had with Lieutenant Pearson and his team. At this time, the Promenade Mall is actually open to us hosting the event there. It would be a great partnership for everyone, so that is one we are in the works for relocating for this summer. Our fall is when we get a little busy. So the first one is the National Preparedness Fair. This year, we've actually been working with our emergency management team, discussing the potential of combining the preparedness fair with the health fair, since there kind of has that same mission. So that is one we're already kind of in the works of combining. So it would be taking place the day of the health fair, which will be on my next slide. But also in the fall, we have our Cartoonapalooza Art Festival. So this is another one of those events where it's a Saturday-only event, but we do have canopies set up on that Friday prior to the event. So we would be planning to offer the same thing of reopening Mercedes Street once those canopies are set up. That way, that Friday evening, people still have through access to the parking garage. As I mentioned, Health and Community Resource Fair, same thing. We'd be able to reopen that Friday evening once canopies are set up, and then also with the combining with the preparedness fair, that would just be a 1.5-day closure. Then we have our Halloween Carnival. This is another event. Before I even started with the city, it used to take place in the hockey rink. It took place in the skate park parking lot. We moved it to the CRC parking lot. And then post-pandemic, we realized we had outgrown all of those locations, and we brought it to the Civic Center Quad. So that's another 1-day closure. We do close the road earlier in the morning just to allow time to set up all those game booths, but then we open the roads as soon as we can once cleanup has begun. Another event that we're interested in possibly relocating would be our Patriotic Salute to Veterans Day. So this event, typically it's on that Veterans Day holiday. It includes a symphony performance at the front steps of City Hall. So depending on the nature of the event, the type of performances, we could certainly relocate this one either to the theater. If we wanted to continue with the symphony concert, we could look into the possibility of one of our facility amphitheaters or a park. And then another annual event, this one is hosted by the city manager's office. It's our Puesca Mountain Day. This one is typically celebrated on the day, which is November 15th. At this time, I don't know their exact plans for the event, but this is typically about like a half-day closure. Most of the time their event takes place at 4, so usually close it early afternoon and then open it up that evening. With the winter, we have our Santa's Electric Light Parade. This one, there's several road closures involved in this one, but specifically with Old Town, we close Old Town Front Street at about 6 o'clock in preparation for the parade. And then once the parade is started at 7, that's when Mercedes Street is essentially closed, just because due to the route and destaging, we have to kind of close off all access to Old Town while the parade itself is going on. And with the New Year's Eve grape drop, this one takes place in front of City Hall. So historically, the road has already been closed because it's in conjunction to the ice skating rink. And then lastly, the ice skating rink, as you can see, this one is typically about a 5-week road closure, just because the rink itself operates for about 3.5 weeks, depending on the holiday schedule, but it requires at least 5 days of setup and then at least 5 days of breakdown. Then with our year-round events, we have the Temecula Sunset Market. So this one takes place the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of the month. This year, they're going to be operating the markets from March through November. The market itself is from 5 to 9, so the roads are closed from 12 to 10 p.m. And then on this slide, I'd be happy to keep it up just as a visual. This includes the current closures in the first column. The second column would be considering consolidating any events or relocating, or with that reopening of Mercedes Street that Friday evening, it would take it from a 2-day closure to a 1.5-day closure. So with those suggestions in mind, it would bring us to 68.5 days of the road being closed. And then just to address the elephant in the room, without the ice skating rink, those closures would bring us down to 30.5 days of road closures. Now I'll turn it over to Mike to conclude.
Well, no, actually, that actually wraps up our presentation. So we look forward to hearing any input you have or answering any questions.
Thank you very much for the report. Now I'm going to start with Commissioner DeGrave.
Thank you. I have a few questions. When you do the reopening of the streets, does it pose any type of challenges if people end up leaving their car overnight and the next day you need the street cleared for the event?
So with most of our road closures, with the area that we use specifically for the event, it's primarily the Main Street Y, so the Horseshoe and Town Square Park. We don't typically utilize the parking lots, so that would allow anyone who is parked overnight, they would still be able to get in and out, especially with the way, now that those lots in front of City Hall are paved, they've actually created an access on the south parking lot to get from the 3rd Street alley. So that used to be an issue if someone were to park in the south parking lot overnight, and if our canopies are set up, there wouldn't be a way around that. So the new way that they've paved it has definitely helped. So if there were any cars that decided to park overnight, it wouldn't, I mean, it could take away one parking spot for a vendor, but it wouldn't ultimately impact our event setup.
Okay. And for the events that you might possibly move to another location, have you thought about maybe utilizing a park or a facility that maybe the community doesn't know exists, or just using it as an opportunity to share some of the facilities that the city has?
That's definitely the type of feedback that we're looking for. There are, certain events that are certain locations that we are used to using, like the CRC Amphitheater or Ronald Reagan Sports Park. So that would definitely be something to look into, whether you have a park or facility like specifically to address, or if you just want us to look into kind of those underutilized locations. It's definitely something to consider. And then based on some of the events, if we do relocate, one of the things we do have to take in mind is our sports schedule. So, some events, it might be better to use at more of what's considered a passive park rather than a sports park, because we wouldn't want to, trade off a road closure and then have to relocate a sports tournament. So essentially with that, we would be looking at some of our kind of like not as popular parks, or maybe kind of off the beaten path, but we'd want to make sure that there's still parking available wherever we choose to relocate them.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kingsburg?
Thank you. No, I appreciate all this information and you guys looking at rethinking things and making changes. I think some of your proposals on, some of the smaller events based on your numbers, the National Night Out, the Salute to Veterans, combining the preparedness fair with the health fair. I know it would push it back a few weeks, but I still think that's prudent. That first week of September is usually one of the hottest weeks of the year, and I know the preparedness fair was postponed because of that blistering heat wave in 2024, and then Juneteenth's a smaller event as well. So, and again, I know change is hard because people get used to an event being in a certain place, and when it's right there in front of City Hall, and that's a preferred location, and again, I've been to the Veterans Concert the last 2 years, and it is nice to be out there at that point. Cold or not cold, it's still a nice venue, but you have to look at all these considerations, and there's a few of these that, again, by talking about this specifically, you don't want. There's certain things you don't want to mess with. The 4th of July parade. Certainly Santa's Electric Light Parade. You're not going to mess with those. And so without offending anyone, and as you said, there's other variables. Like, for example, I'm looking at the hours here, the Sunset Market. I counted 180 hours total, from March, November. So that's a sizable number of hours. And again, I know there's contracts, there's other considerations, but I know that's a relatively new program, started last year, so it'll be interesting to see how well attended that is and the success of it, and does it warrant, 2 nights a month, of closure, if you will. Obviously, the nights that's combined with a concert, you have a dual, purpose there, or dual use. And then just my final thing would be the impact. At some of the council meetings I attended or viewed, there was a lot of discussion about closures and the impact on Old Town residents. I trust that's part of the equation here as well. I heard about some of the bigger events about residents not being able to get back to their homes after work and those sort of things. So there's a lot of variables here, and again, I know you guys interface with other departments such as Public Works, et cetera. And thank you for taking a look at it and trying to be mindful about doing the best we can to still promote our events, but also keep our arteries open. I know if people are coming, southbound, and we want them to use the parking structure, which was another discussion I heard at City Council or through the Old Town Review Board, they're gonna probably need Mercedes to get over there with everything going on. So thank you, guys.
Commissioner Castro?
Thank you for the briefing. You guys are in a difficult spot where I think it really builds community spirit, having events in front of City Hall, and people want to be there, but also I realize you have to balance that with impact to the community, people living here, and the businesses. I don't really have any input beyond that. I think you've done a great job to try to get it down to a lower level, and I have some insight that Ride the Vines might only be one night of closure.
That's what I figured, but I wanted to make sure until I had a chance to review the application thoroughly, so I figured might as well just bump it up to 2 just to be safe.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Vice Chair Sizemore?
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight and sharing this with us and asking for our feedback. I can agree with the events that you've discussed, consolidating and relocating. A couple of concerns and a couple of questions. Being a part of the Chamber of Commerce and as involved as I am with the business community, I do have an opportunity to talk to business owners in Old Town. And that one of the things I hear from them is that the road closures, especially for our restaurants, it really affects their business. When we do an event also that brings in food vendors, it affects their business. We have intentionally made a thriving Old Town commercial district, so I do think we need to make sure that we are putting those concerns of our brick and mortar establishments that are paying rent full-time for these facilities. We need to take that into consideration with our road closures so that we're not making it hard for them to make business. So that would be one of my concerns. I think with the Sunset Market, that could potentially be something that the hours, especially bringing in outside food vendors for that, can affect our restaurants and vendors that we have that are brick and mortars here in Old Town. So that would be a concern of mine. Also, Temecula on ice. I see it blank over here. There's a column for no ice rink, so I don't know if that is a suggestion on that. 38 days is a lot for cutting Mercedes out. We've created, like I said, we've created a very thriving district here, and that's a main artery. So that does significantly, I feel, impact it. From my observation, even just being a resident trying to get down here, and it's like, it was like December 31st. It was after Christmas, and I'm like, the rink's closed. No, they're still tearing it down. I have to go back. So we've put a lot down here, and so I think we need to take that into consideration. We had kind of mentioned it during this past year when we discussed it here at Commission, the 4th of July parade. I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but we've been seeing decreasing attendance and participation in that year after year. I believe when you looked at the numbers that you shared with us, you know, our Christmas parade has 18,000 participants or attendees, and our 4th of July was like 4,000. I think it's considering that we have fireworks, we have the Ronald Reagan Sports Park festivities, and then you have another large event here on the southern side of town. That would be an event that I would like, I could consider, I don't want to say I'd like to see us get rid of it. I don't mean it that way. That would be an event I would consider relocating or consolidating it, because the participation from our residents just doesn't seem to be there, in my opinion, just opinion, to warrant the efforts of having 2 large events in separate areas of town on that day.
Piggyback on one of your points. I think if you're going to present this to the city council, having some statistics that show the impact of closing, does it actually impact the restaurants? Like, I would think bringing 60,000 people into Old Town for the Rod ones would help the restaurants, because I see there, when I've been down here, the restaurants are packed. Does it really, if you have feedback from them that's actually supported by statistics, that would make, I don't know what you're hearing from them anecdotally, but
yes, that's also part of our, I don't want to say research, but definitely part of this. There are some restaurants that we have been in communication with just over the past few years of being within the events division. The next step also after having this presentation, we will be going to the Old Town Local Advisory Committee and doing the same presentation. So we hope with that, since some of the committee members on that are a part of the Old Town Temecula Association, own a business in Old Town, live in Old Town, we'll definitely be able to get a better feel from them on that aspect. But it's definitely something with all of this, you know, I know it can be a touchy subject. No one wants to say, don't have this event, but it's definitely, there are a lot of factors that go into it. And, you know, even with the outcome of this, it doesn't mean that once any decisions are made based on the direction of city council, that we can't have the discussion again. But yes, definitely getting the feedback from the restaurants and merchants is definitely part of this process as well.
Yes, and some of the businesses I've talked to have said that if they sell pizza and we have a merchant that sells pizza and it's cheaper, they're going to the vendor's booth to get the pizza. And then, so this concept of you brought all these people in Old Town, they're like, yeah, but then you brought someone who's selling food cheaper than I can do it, so.
If I can just jump in on a couple things here, just for points of reference. So part of the original plan for what Old Town would look like involved, we worked with a consultant named KMA. They came in, they did a lot of recommendations as to how to build Old Town up to be a an economically viable entity. And we actually have right out in the foyer there on the left-hand side, there's that big screen. It's actually a display that's all about the work with KMA. And one of the recommendations of KMA was to not only build a good balance of merchants and restaurants, but to also host events in Old Town, because that's part of what contributes to, you know, creating a sense of place that makes Temecula a destination, as opposed to just, you know, like any other Old Town, if that makes sense. It's part of what adds, along with our individual shops and restaurants, to the charm of Old Town. We have gotten a lot of mixed feedback on this issue, and so I'm glad you brought up that idea of getting some data, and that is definitely something that we're going to be working on, is trying to really nail down, you know, what are the impacts. Obviously, we don't want to negatively impact our local businesses. We also want to be aware of the fact that many businesses have considerable wait lists and lines out the door, and even if 2 different places are selling pizza, is there enough demand that it actually eats up both of those, you know, or it's enough to create, you know, bigger pie, basically just make the pie bigger.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of conflicting anecdotal information around this. And even some of the individual merchants that we've spoken to, we've heard the ones who are up here on either side of the road closure sometimes are frustrated when some of the ones on Front Street may see that same event and that same closure as beneficial. So we're still trying to get to the bottom of this, but it's definitely part of our due diligence is to do as much research as we can on this and just bring that information to you, to OTLAC, and then to the council, and then obviously the council will set our policy direction on this.
Well, and I will commend you on the hosting events here in front of City Hall. It's made City Hall feel more personal. It doesn't, it feels more community. It feels like it's a special place for every resident here. And I know there's just something of when we do the Veterans Day Symphony program out there, there's just something small town that just feels so special, you know, listening. Yeah, and even, yeah, the Halloween. So it is a special place, and I feel like it's made it, City Hall less of an intimidating, it's not, ooh, City Hall. It makes it more, it's all of our place. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
I do appreciate that our commissioners, they have different insights and we can look at things from different angle. And I just want to bring out a couple of comments that I agree with some of your analysis, like some of the smaller events such as the Juneteenth had 200 or 300 and the Patriot concert have 300. When I look at the budget and the number, it's about 10 times the cost per person compared to the popular event. So that is a big difference. So I'm thinking, I totally agree with you. If we can move those smaller events to a CRC amphitheater, like the Juneteenth can be outdoors, and the patriotic concert, since we have them in the Old Town Theater, seems the symphonies, they really like that locations. And if we can have them there for the concert, for the patriotic concert, that might be an option, so we don't have to close. And regarding the ice rink, is that possible to not close the Mercedes and still have the ice rink?
No, so we had a lot of discussions about that prior to this holiday season, speaking with Public Works, Fire, RSO, and the ice skating rink in general. And unfortunately, due to the size of the ice skating rink and the requirements for it, it just wasn't something that would be feasible.
Okay, because that seems, it's really, it brings magic to Old Town Temecula. You can ice skate in your shorts and t-shirts in Southern California. Not too many places that we can do that. And for a lot of families, including my families, we enjoy going there. And I've seen, every time I go by, I saw lots of people there. But if you can look into the statistics or maybe condense it to 4 weeks, if 5 weeks is too long, that might be another route for the ice rink.
Also, when we first brought the ice rink to Old Town, there was no other ice skating in the area in the winter. And now Peltzer has added an ice rink seasonally, and I think there's one other one. Galway, thank you. Galway Downs has added one. So when we first did it, it was really, I mean, it was unique. No one else was doing it. It was very, very exciting. And now there are a couple of other options in the area for the ice rink other than the one here in Old Town, which I agree, it is very picturesque. It's nice to see, you know, the huge tree, courtesy of VTV, and then the rink and the city hall. It's really a beautiful, you know, image, but it is also rather impactful from a road closure standpoint.
So have you seen the number dropped for the ice rink since the competition started?
So it's funny you ask that. I would say in general for our ice skating rink, the number has dropped, but when we compare the number of days that our ice rink is open compared to the number of days that other ice rinks are open, we actually found that our attendance was higher by the day. But as far as just looking at like by the season, due to Peltzer's, theirs is open for about like a month and a half, almost 2 months, or like 8. Yeah, theirs was open probably like twice the amount of time ours was. If you break it down like an average of ice skaters per day, ours actually came out just a smidge higher.
So that's a possibility, maybe condense it so we can still have it, but we don't have to have 38 days of closure.
Yeah, definitely something to consider.
All right, thank you very much for your report. And I hope these feedback helps.
It does help, and then thank you very much. So our next stop, as I believe Erica had mentioned, is we're going to be going to the OTLAC meeting on the end of the month, the last Thursday.
February 27th.
Right, and then we're still going to be reaching out to some of the business community here and really trying to fine tune our recommendations that we're planning on bringing to City Council at the beginning of March, and obviously they'll have their recommendations at that time as well. But thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we're going to move into our director's report. Director Russo.
Okay, well, we've had a lot of very meaty presentations today, so I wanted to thank Patrice and Lacey for the homeless outreach presentation. Zoe, you did a great job today on the social media presentation. Very excited about your work with our social media team. And Mike and Tracy, thanks so much for that information about the road closures and the events. And this will be an ongoing discussion, so we appreciate your feedback on that. Aside from that, I know the hot topic has been the suggestion at the previous council meeting about potentially revisiting the structure of the commissions and/or condensing some commissions. And I think the concept that was floated was potentially condensing or combining the traffic safety and planning commissions and the ready and community services commissions. And obviously that has engendered a lot of questions from the various commissioners on all of those commissions about what that would look like. And unfortunately, we don't have any answers at this point. So Chair Hawks had requested that we agendize the item for tonight. Unfortunately, the agenda was already finalized at that point, so we weren't able to do that, and you're not able to have a discussion on the dais because of the Brown Act because it was not agendized. I spoke with the city clerk, who was the one tasked during that item at council with bringing a staff report back to council. And she advised me that she is still doing the research on that. One of the things she's been tasked with doing is kind of looking at what other cities are doing and how other cities are structuring their commissions. And then she will be bringing that back, not at tomorrow night's council, because it's not agendized, but either the last one in February or in March. So it will be coming back to council. And at that point, staff will be making a recommendation, basically commenting on what they've found, looking at other cities in terms of how other cities are organized, and any other questions that council asked them to look into. And then council will have their discussion at that point. One of the things we did discuss off just kind of casually at the room dedication for Rosie Vanderhoek, and which I also mentioned in my email, is that any commissioner can approach any council member one-on-one at any point in time to share their opinions on this. I think several of you talked to, Zach potentially about meeting with him. Definitely, I would recommend reach out to your council members. You can one-on-one ask them what they're thinking, you can provide your feedback to them, and that may be a very direct way of providing some data for them to have when they go to consider this item next. So again, unfortunately, I think it's more questions than answers at this point, but that's sort of the overview of the situation.
Thank you. Since you mentioned it, I want to see if we can agendize it for the next meeting so that commissioners can have an internal dialogue so we can give some feedbacks about our thoughts. I appreciate you mentioned that we can each individually go approach the city council and ask for feedback. But on the other hand, that when 5 of us, we can have a group discussion and dialogue, so then I think maybe it's more efficient than going individually. We have different things. We don't really know what other members are thinking. So I want to put a request to add to our agenda for next meeting so we can have a discussion, and then we can provide the feedback to the council, and then they have that extra piece of information before they make the decision.
Okay. And I understand, and I appreciate all of you understanding the limitations of the Brown Act, which obviously make things, this sort of situation is very, there are very strict guidelines in terms of how these can be discussed. So I appreciate everyone complying with the Brown Act on this. Thank you.
So we'll add that to next week, next month.
I will be absent next month.
Okay.
I'm going to see my son. Can I prepare a comment to send in that can be read by secretary?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we are going to move into our commissioner's report, and I want to start with Vice Chair Sizemore.
I'm not used to going first. Caught me off guard. Been a busy month. Wanted to just say that I did have an opportunity to meet with Miss Ginger at the library. It's just hard to not call her Miss Ginger. I'm sorry. Got to meet with her and staff, and I have some concerns. I have a few things I am doing a little bit of research on my own, And a couple of things that I'd like to make an appointment with Mayor Kalfas to talk to him about. He is my council representative, so that's why I was going to go to him. Just some concerns on some emergency situations, and also concern on how we are managing the library with the outside service. Just some concerns that we're not getting the service that we could be getting, that I think our residents deserve. So I do want to follow up on that at a future meeting with you.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now Commissioner Castro.
I don't have any specific comments. My question already got addressed. I don't think you really, I don't really know if there's any action to be taken, because I think it would require funding from the city council to fix that fence.
Yeah, so what I can do with that is actually check in with the Parks Maintenance staff, Stacy Fox, and just see what his budget's looking like as we approach the end of the fiscal year. I have no idea how much the fencing would cost. When it came up before, we still had not fully accepted the park from the builder, from the developer of Somers Bend. And so we were trying to get the builder to take that on and fix that, and they, as James mentioned, declined. But it's been several years now. I'll talk to Stacy and just see if that's something that there would ever be budget existing in the parks maintenance line item to see about that.
Because they have had a lot of snake sightings in the park, and especially
sure.
down there along the creek. And so having the kids go tromping down in there to look for their soccer ball, and they also break the fence that's there to get over the fence to get down in there. So I think it's just worth looking at.
No, I think it's a good idea. We even have those signs up at Ronald Reagan along the wash, warning people of rattlesnakes in the wash, so
Yeah.
that is a concern.
Okay,
Thanks,
you.
Commissioner Castro.
Commissioner Kingsburg.
Well, thank you all for a productive meeting. We got a lot of information from a lot of different folks tonight. At my end, it was a good month. I was pleased to be able to participate in the MLK Day of Service on January 20th on the holiday. And then I followed up, we learned about the senior and special needs hours, they called it, from 8:30 to 11. I followed up with, through James, I met with Andrew and Matt over at the CRC the morning of Tuesday the 28th, and it was really neat to see that many folks enjoying the gymnasium and just the pure joy of, playing ball, having a ball and bouncing the ball and grabbing the ball and kicking the ball, and music was playing, and it wasn't anything competitive, it wasn't anything serious, it was just people having fun. And I want to say they had about, I guess I came at a good time, it's like 60 people were in there that morning. So that was really neat. I did attend the mural unveil for Women in STEM on January 29th with Great Oak students, and I got feedback from a teacher at Great Oak, because now I am connected at Great Oak High. They really appreciated the support that the city gave on that event, and great job by Chair Hawks on addressing the audience. That afternoon, and I know Sergio was here earlier, I want to congratulate him on a successful first Culture Day of the year for Mongolia last Saturday. I was over at that for a bit, and it seemed like families did enjoy all the opportunities, from the art with Tony Morimarco to the scavenger hunts. People were enjoying the day and having a good time on a Saturday in our city. So thank you very much.
Commissioner DeGrave.
I had the pleasure of attending the room dedication at the library for Rosie Vanderhoek, and even though I just met her and I don't know her personally, it was evident that her namesake really, she was the worthy recipient of that room dedication. And the key thing that I just wanted to share with staff and the commissioners is, I think it's really beautiful when we can honor somebody and they're still alive, because it just makes it that much more special. She can go there with her family, they can see her name, and she'll have a lasting impression in our valley. So I just thought that was really a beautiful event, and really to a really deserving person.
Thank you. Now it's my report. I want to make it two parts. The first part, I want to give a highlights from the council meeting from last month, and the second part will be my involvement in the community. So the highlights from the council meeting was that 2 council members were very interested in having a drone show for the 4th of July. And then for my personal involvement, I attended 5 events. I attended the food drive, thank you, Commissioner Kingsburg, and the mural recognition. Again, very glad to see Commissioner Kingsburg and Castro's presence. And then the library community room dedication to Rosie, and I totally agree what you said. And also I'm happy to see Commissioner Castro and DeGrave there. And then I also had friends visiting from China. So I took them to the City Welcome Center. They put their pins there. They were very impressed and they really liked Old Town. So I brought them back Friday evening again. We stopped by at the Merc and looked around and saw, I think it's Brazil jazz was going on. So they were really impressed with the culture we had here. It's a Western American culture, first time for them to experience. So overall, I really appreciate that all my fellow commissioners, your dedication, your involvement in different activities, and Vice Chair Sizemore, your meeting with Ginger for the library improvement. So I appreciate our commissioners. And now it's 7:30. I adjourn the meeting.